Hello and welcome to another great edition of Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., and we are here to address a driving question as we do at every show. What can we do to grow our communities? Let's look at Jeremiah 29:7. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Listen, this speaks to one of the fundamental themes of Be Lifted Up Radio and abundant living. And that's abundant living, and the blessings that come with it is not just for us. Yes, we are blessed with talents, skills, resources, relationships, and opportunities. But if we take all of that and we think it's just about our healing, our hope, and our advancement and our enrichment, then we are missing the whole point of this walk. Today's guests exemplify that perfectly because of what they do to impact a particular group, which really impacts everybody, and that's Black men. Sit tight. We'll be right back. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Hello and welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr. Listen, before we get started, I want to remind you that you can catch Be Lifted Up Radio at beliftedupradio.com. This and every other episode on the Mocha Podcast Network.com. That's podcast plural across all social media platforms, including Instagram and Facebook. We're also on Sirius XM 141. We just want to make sure you can find the show and tell all your friends about it, because this episode and every edition of the show will bless you and bless those you know. But listen, I'm so excited to get to jump into this conversation. So let me set the table. First of all, as I said in the opener, whatever is given to you is not just for you. As I say all the time, God did not create you to be a container. He created us to be vessels, to pour into us so that we might pour into others. Who those others are will vary from person to person, time to time, and season to season. But please understand that what you enjoy is not just for you. And also what you struggle through is not just for you. I can't tell you how many times that I realized that something that was a struggle for me positioned me to bless someone else through my experience, my lessons, and what I learned. So let's start with that. Is a fundamental understanding of what it means to live an abundant life. You need to seek the peace and prosperity of the city, meaning the peace and prosperity of where you live, the people around you, your family, your neighborhood, even the nation and the world. Well, these two brothers that I'm about to introduce you to are doing that in a very special way. And we might as well get it out of the way. Y'all know I love style. You know, while I ended up at Black Enterprise as a business journalist, my original goal was GQ Esquire. So that's another reason I'm really excited to have them on the show. Hey, listen, please welcome to the show from Black Menswear, a cultural impact agency connecting brands to the global market of Black men, NeAndre Broussard and Evan Marshall.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here.
No, thank you. You're learning. When I'm really, really excited about a guest, I gotta get pulled back. So Gwen has to manage me because I was so excited about you guys being on the show, because you're speaking to some of my passion points. I love style. I love the idea of Black men as arbiters of style, and I always specify the difference between fashion and style. Like fashion is important, but style is what makes fashion work. And fashion is a language. Fashion is a lot more than the label on the clothes and where you bought it from and what it costs and whether the colors match. And so I'm always passionate about that. I've been passionate about that since I was little. Since I started loving bow ties when I was a toddler, fedoras. I mean, so I go back. I mean, you'll know. But I love that the idea that that's more than just, oh, I look good and I look fly, but there's a culture around style, and in this case, valuing, communicating with Black men in particular, that I think is very, very powerful. You guys know about our event with Black Enterprise, the Excel Summit for Men. Before my life at Black Enterprise, I was the editor of a magazine called, not the editor, I was the #2 editor, called Modern Black Men. That was a fashion lifestyle magazine for Black men. So I am passionate about this subject matter, but now I'm going to shift a little bit before I let you guys talk about who you are and what you do. As a man of faith who came from a working poor household and a working class community, my role models for how to present myself as a Black man was these well-dressed Black men on Sundays who might have been working in factories and at gas stations during the week, but on Saturdays and Sundays, they were like, let me make sure you understand who, how I'm rolling and who I really am. And so this whole idea of pride of identity, pride of presentation, it's not that style makes the man. That's not true. But if you're a quality person, I was raised that you want to reflect that, your authenticity, your integrity, your value to the world by how you present yourself to the world. And that's individual for each person. So there's no right way to do it, but it was important to do it. And I think that's one of the seminal contributions that I think Black people have made to fashion around the world, and Black men in particular. So now I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys talk about Black menswear, who you are, what you do, how you guys came together. Let me just get out of the way, set the table for our audience.
Well, we appreciate you having us on and allowing us to really just talk through the value and the benefit of this community that we've built, right? Because you hit the nail on the head with one of the things about it. It's not really about what you're wearing. It's about who you are as a man inside. But what you're wearing allows you to have so many more opportunities. Just being 100% honest with you, right? So many more chances to meet people authentically, to tap in and build networks, to be able to give back. Because of, one thing that you learn is that appearance really leads to that first impression, which is lasting. So if my first impression is one of safety, because you got a brother got a suit on too, I got okay. Well, now I can. How you doing? What's going on? I don't necessarily go into that conversation with the wall up, and that just speaks to the value of what we've built in regards to providing a safe space for Black men to come together, to lean into community service, to lean into brotherhood, to lean into networking. Because oftentimes, in both my and Evan's background in corporate world, before God took us off of that track and put us on the track to what we're doing now, we were oftentimes the only one that looked like us in rooms. And so we'd go into these corporate spaces that didn't have a lot of people that looked like us. And so you're always seeking to find, well, where's my connectivity? And you found camaraderie with brothers from across the room. Even the how Evan and I met almost 15 years ago now was at a Urban League Young Professionals meeting. Well, we were two young brothers in the room, and now granted, it was a room full of Black people, but there weren't a lot of Black men in the room. And so we saw each other from across the room, and it was one of those little head nods, and that built community, right? And so, as we fast forward, 15 years now with our relationship, business-wise, going on 6 years now, growing and establishing a business. That was one of the first things that we understood, the power of that visual connectivity that we have. And I'm sure we'll dive into a lot of that. I don't want to take all the time to intro. I'll pass it over to Evan.
No, yeah. Kind of very second that I would just say, yeah, that's kind of how we got connected. I think in terms of a style, one of the big things of us right now is kind of going back to what you were saying is we're Mr. Edmond that, I like to say fashion is what you see on the runway. Style is the essence of who you are. So it really kind of comes down to every single day is how do I want to present myself to the world? So it don't even necessarily got to mean that you got to wear a suit all the time. But if you want to say like, hey, in this environment, I want to wear joggers today, I want to wear a hoodie, that's how you choose to present yourself. So people are going to match that energy and receive that energy in a more casual, relaxed setting. Again, nothing wrong with that, but that is how they're going to perceive you, right? So I think that's kind of what it is. It kind of just comes down to how you want to present yourself, how you want to be viewed, how you want to be your stature of that, and then establish the tone, establish the energy in which you want to be received.
You know, that this whole idea of what fashion and style is and the critical difference between the two, which you both really, and Evan especially, have eloquently really, spoken, is something that's been core to my appreciation for style in particular. Long before I had access to the best of what fashion was, I had style. Like I knew as a toddler, like I had style. I just,
Right.
some of it was taught, some of it was innate, some of it was absorbed from around me. But before I knew what style was, I knew I had it. And this idea of style being a reflection of an expression of personal identity is very important, particularly for Black men whose identities are often either erased or distorted. And again, that's why the brother who worked in the factory did want to, don't define me by this job I do that might be due to limited opportunity and a limited appreciation of the value I bring to the world. Define me. And so, people who are, I won't call them anti-style, sometimes I have these little wars on social media, and it's like, don't judge a book by its cover. And I'm like, it's not about the cover of the book. It's about whether the cover of the book reflects what's inside the book. So, as you said, Evan,
Correct. No, I think,
there's nothing magical about a hoodie or good or bad about a hoodie. But there are certain places that you want to communicate certain things about you.
Yep.
Certain times there are other things you want to communicate about you, and your ability to align culture with your fashion and the language you're trying to speak. When those things line up, you hit style.
Yep.
Effective style. But I didn't mean to cut you off, Evan. You were about to say.
No, I was going to say one thing. People always say don't judge a book by its cover, but if you're in the bookstore, what's going to draw your attention to whether you want to pick that book up or not?
Yeah.
And where do you feel betrayed if you pick up the book because of the cover?
Right.
And on some level, the book does not deliver what's promised on the cover.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, I speak to young men in particular because it's less of a conversation I tend to have. I'm big into mentorship. And it's almost like, this is my own personal opinion, you'll see sisters, listen, whether you think their style is fly or not, they're trying. Like they're ready to get on the they're just going to the store and they're ready to get on the runway, right? Yeah. There's still a value for style among women and Black men in particular. And I talk to young men, including my son, who does have style, so I'm not dissing him. But I said, you got to understand that, again, style is about culture, and culture is about language. So fashion is a language. So, I talked to him about, this is who you are. Evan, you made just a great point, a really eloquent point about the difference between style and fashion. Listen, you're listening to Be Lifted Up, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. with NeAndre Broussard and Evan Marshall of Black Menswear, and we will be right back. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life, and we're here with NeAndre Broussard and Evan Marshall of Black Menswear. And as we were wrapping our last segment, we were talking about style and culture and fashion as a language. We were using this metaphor of book covers, and I wanted to say, when people say don't judge a book by its cover, my thing is that the cover can look like anything, but it has to deliver inside the book, has to reflect what the cover promises, and that is, so it's not about one book cover being better than another. It's not about hoodies being better than suits or vice versa. It's what is it you're trying to communicate about who you are and why you're here that reflects the cover, the book cover that you're promising. I wanted to use the example of my son when he was younger, and we were talking about culture, and Dad, I need to dress according to my culture. And I'm saying, well, culture is fluid. And what I told him was like, well, if you were raised a New York Knicks fan, and your father was a New York Knicks fan, and your grandmother was a New York Knicks fan, and your culture is you're a New York Knicks fan, if you get drafted by the Bulls, guess what you're not wearing? You're not wearing Knicks paraphernalia.
Right. Yep.
You're wearing Bulls paraphernalia.
Right.
Yep.
Neither one is better than the other, but in order to perform in the culture that you now belong to, you have to decide how you're going to, and your fans, your new culture is not going to appreciate it if you're like, yeah, on the court, I'm wearing a Bulls jersey, but in my spare time, I'm going to be a Knick. And he was only like 11, but he got it. He was like, oh, I got to be prepared to understand what I'm communicating about myself in the environments that I go into. And that's why you want me to wear a suit here and I can't wear sneakers here, but I can wear it here. You know,
Yep.
but so again, a lot of times things it's like, oh, it's about, you know, being judgmental about what people wear. And it's not about that at all, because there's some environments you should never wear a suit, even no matter how fly it is.
And I agree with you there from an environment perspective. It's always like there's a time and place for everything. And one of the things that, you know, my background before this, my corporate background was financial services. So for me, it was very much a you walk into a room, you should mirror what that room looks like. So I shouldn't walk into that room being too comfortable, because if I'm too comfortable, I'm not going to get what I want to get out of that room. And it's also about those results that you're trying to drive for yourself, right? I remember my being a young man in banking, coming straight out of college, and I mean, first suit I ever got, I think I went to Men's Warehouse. I got a straight black suit because I had to wear a black suit and blue shirt every day at the bank. And I remember I got that suit and I wore the same suit 4 days a week, like same suit 4 days a week. And I remember my first day in that bank, brand new guy on the floor, and an older gentleman that did not look like me walked up to me and said, "Hey man, you look real good in that suit. Can you help me today?" Older white gentleman, never met me before, but that was a quick thing for me. It was like, oh, okay, if I dress the part, I can get the part. And so with understanding that, obviously that compound a little bit later, I started to figure out, okay, how can I make it a little different? Can I wear a bow tie today? Can I wear, you know? And so that's where now we had the I guess the fashion rule that was for that job was black suit, blue shirt. Then it became my style was, okay, how do I want to be represented within this so that way I can stand out versus everybody else? So then I started to splice it up. Let me wear a pocket square. Let me put a lapel pin on. Let me put a bow tie on. Let me wear a off-color tie. Just how can I make it a little bit more for me? But as I fast forwarded through that space of finance and became a traveling wholesaler where I ran an entire region, as soon as I walked into that door, people looked at me like, "Oh, you the man that's working. You the lead man for today." And at that, I didn't have to explain why I was there. I didn't have to validate my credentials. They're like, "Oh, you look like you're supposed to be at the front of the room teaching us today." So they just sat back and listened. And that was just one of the things that I picked up around when you're supposed to be in the room that you want to be in. Sometimes you have to function in a way that room is already in before you can break the barriers that are there. And some of the times I just feel like we might jump to the end result before we have to take the time and go through the steps to get to how I can change the room, how I can be a seat at the table and all these things. But then once you're there, like, okay, it goes back to what's inside that book. Now how you stepping up every day, how you representing every day. And so I definitely understand that analogy that gives the young man the confidence of knowing, like, all right, I can put this on over here, but when I go over here, I got to make sure I'm appropriate. I dress the part. I play the part. Because what's the old adage, like, don't dress for where you are, dress for where you want to be.
Right. And listen, Evan, I want you to jump in because in addition to both of you are coming to the journey as Black professional men, maybe the first and only at different stages of your career and how you present yourself, had certain outcomes for your options, your choices, but also because you come from a marketing and background. Again, you used to work for Burrell Advertising. So you understand image not only from a personal expression standpoint, but from a business standpoint, that image and branding are very tangible assets in the world of business and beyond.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think hearing both of you all speak, I think one of the things that's very interesting, I think we're using the advertising term is oftentimes we got to do a reframing, right? So it has to be a reframing of the mindset of which we're approaching this. So I think oftentimes when we look at especially men of color, when we think about the opportunities of when it's like, oh, I don't want to have to wear a suit. I don't want to have to wear a suit. We're looking at that from a framing of this isn't an environment in which I want to be a part of. So, but if you reframe that into where this is where an environment I'm choosing to be a part of, that is the uniform in which you're wearing in that perspective. So look at it from this standpoint. If you a nurse, you're gonna have to wear scrubs. If you're a doctor, you're gonna have to wear your coat. If you're an athlete, like if you're a football player, you're gonna have to wear a helmet and shoulder pads. If you're a basketball player, you're not gonna wear hiking shoes, you're gonna wear basketball shoes. So that is just the uniform within that framework of which you're choosing to be. So at the same time, to NeAndre's part about how when he was in banking and finance and he had the suit on and the gentleman was like, I want you to help today. That literally is the frame of reference that you have within the banking and financial industry of where this is the culture standpoint of which I'm going to be immersing myself. So, and I think that's the reframing I have to where like, if this is an environment I'm choosing to be a part of, this is the culture and the framework of that environment which I'm choosing to immerse myself in. So in advertising, you can wear a suit too, but you can be way more expressive if you work on Madison Avenue than if you work on Fifth Avenue. Two entirely different things, but because Fifth Avenue is going to be much more business, financial sector, so it's going to be more cultural reference, whereas Madison Avenue, it is advertising. So you can be more expressive. To your point, like you may be able to wear a fedora in an office and nobody's going to say anything. Even in politics, everybody's saying politics. If you ever notice it, they don't ever do pattern ties. It's always plain red, plain blue. If you really notice politics, they don't ever do pattern ties, right? Because it's not set. But if you in finance, you can wear a pattern tie. Like that's not a cultural nuance there. So I think that's where you got to understand. But again, that's the remembrance of like, am I choosing to be in this environment? Am I immersing myself in this environment? Now, if it's a situation to where it's an environment, it's like, oh, I don't want to have to wear a suit going there, then I can understand why you would have that trepidation or hesitation, because that's not an environment in which you want to be a part of. But any environment in which you're choosing to be a part of, regardless of the industry sector, you have to adapt and embrace, even more so a better firm, the environment and uniform of that. Like I said, there's not a doctor in the world. Like if you own your own private practice, you can establish the culture for your family practice however you want. But any hospital in the world you go into, every nurse in there is going to have scrubs on, male or female. Every doctor in there is going to have his or her lab coat on, male or female. And nobody ever says as a doctor, I don't want to have to wear my scrubs today. Nobody ever says that. Right?
Well, no. Think about it. And this idea of reframing, I mean, we're talking about in the context of fashion and life and self-expression. But as someone, if you guys know me, I'm serious into working out and I'm a natural bodybuilder. And I tell people, they go, oh, you're so disciplined. I said, it's not really discipline. I reframed from what I have to do to what I get to do. And what
exactly.
you're doing is,
100%.
What do I get to do if I'm a doctor? What do I get to do if I'm a successful advertising executive? And when you reframe it to what you get to do, then it's like, no, I get to wear scrubs. I get Correct. To wear this suit. I get to wear this look because it's like you said, it's an expression of what I want to do and who I choose to be. Then it's right. Not like, oh man, they're making me wear this suit.
Correct.
Why do I got to wear this suit when it doesn't make me any smarter? The reframing is so important. And listen, I'm about to do it again. Guys, you see how excited I am to talk to these brothers. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm here with Evan Marshall and NeAndre Broussard of Black Menswear. Listen, when we come back, we're going to talk about the real reason why we had you guys on the show, which is why you decided to make this not just a business, but I wouldn't even call it a ministry or a mission to impact more than just your own personal careers and your own personal lives in terms of the value of why you started Black Menswear. Sit tight, guys. We will be right back with Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm here with Evan Marshall and NeAndre Broussard of Black Menswear. I'm having too much fun because if there's anything I like talking about, it's fashion and style and what it means and what it was and what it does. But I want to get to the core reason why I think we're so happy to get you guys on the show. Everything we've talked about, you guys could have kept that secret sauce for yourself, for your own career, for your own satisfaction, for your own, just being fly. And I should say, when you're fly in gym clothes all the way to the three-piece suit or the tuxedo. Because as you said, NeAndre, I tell people fashion is the floor. Everybody's standing on the floor. But style is the touches that make it uniquely you on the floor.
Yeah.
And the style is where the fun is. It's like, oh, I got to wear a navy blue suit to work every day. What can I do with these cufflinks?
Yeah.
What can I do with these ties? Nobody forgets a man, as you know, I'm a bow tie guy. Nobody forgets a man who wore a bow tie.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. But what I'm getting to is you're taking all of that value, all of that insight, all that information, and you start Black Menswear. Why and for who?
So the why was simple, was that the media portrayal of our community didn't match the men that were part of our community, right? You got, when I started it, myself, Evan, a bunch of the guys that we know that were in our circle weren't the gentlemen that the news portrayed us as, absent this aggressive, stereotypical, criminalistic Black man. And so that was the first call. I was like, all right, well, who's gonna like actually put the proper depiction of us out? Even if you look at, like, Evan and I have been in fashion for a long time. Like, and so just even if you look at the guys that the fashion editorials were showcasing that were stylistic, there weren't a lot of Black males that were in that, from your initial years of social media influencers to your GQ parties that they're inviting all of these men to come and attend, and the Esquire coming to attend. And like, you got two men that the whole thing that look like us. And of course they're dapper down, right? And so that was the first. It was, okay, well, since nobody's going to tell that story, we're going to tell that story. Where it became the movement was after we did the first flash mob, 2017, October, forget which day, October, Saturday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, we had 25 brothers show up that showed up suited and booted and just sitting there. Like, obviously I'm, putting these guys together and taking these pictures, but I'm hearing the conversation that they're talking about. It's like, oh man, I ain't seen you in 3 years. How you doing? Or, man, I found out about this. So-and-so told me about this. I'm glad I came. I was able to tap in and meet some good brothers. And so like that chatter was what kept it going, because like you see that you're actually, you're becoming an outlet for guys to have a safe space just to connect with each other. And then that's compounded and that's grown to where about 3 years ago, we decided, well, what we're doing to tell this story is bigger than just Black men. It's also Black women. It's underrepresented groups holistically. And so the ability that we had to build our own community, which started on social media, then came off of social media, then came in real life, we're then able to pivot that and turn that into a podcast and turn that into brands wanting to tap in and understand, well, how did y'all do this? The main thing that we tell them is authenticity. It's like, we do this in the way that we've been able to do it, and I'll pass it to Evan. Like, the way that we've been able to do this is because our community has been as authentic today as it was when we first started it. Now, the story might change, it might evolve, it might get stronger, or it might go deeper in particular aspects, but the authenticity is the same. And that's what a lot of brands were missing out on. And that's where we kind of took the social media platform and turned it into the full-scale agency that we're now able to help with authenticity for others.
Yeah, but I want you to pick up from there, and I do want you to talk about your podcast on the Revolt Network, the check-in with Black Menswear, as you tell your side of the evolution of the organization.
Yeah, so we've kind of evolved in a couple of different ways now. So obviously people know us for the flash mob, and they see that But that's honestly not even about men in suits. That really is a safe space for Black men to be around other Black men. It's a safe space for community to kind of come together. One of the big things we really enjoyed in the past 12 months is there have been more and more women that have come to observe. And that's something that we really take pride in as well. Even in the most recent one we did in Dallas last month, we actually got a piece of video. We had actually asked all the women that were there, well, how did this impact you? How did that make you feel? So that's really one of the big things about it. But even since then, we've actually built this into now we have a two different pronged business segment. So we have a Black menswear entity, which obviously consists of the flash mobs, the community programs. In the past 12 months, we've done a couple of different HBCU partnerships. We've done a partnership with My Brother's Keeper out of Chicago, where we actually had we did headshots for students. We did financial literacy programs for students. We did grooming workshops for Black men. And then we also have the podcast within that, which NeAndre hosts, where we interview Black men and even Black women talking about their individual journeys. We're in season 5 of that. First guest of this season was Tabitha and Chance Brown, which were great to have on there. As well, last week we had Etienne, a founder of Cheryl Lee Ralph's son, and founder of Walk Good LA, which is a Black male, not Black, but Black people wellness business focusing on hiking, mental health, yoga. They have a film workshop and an art. So it's wide, all encompassing people on that. And then we also have a cultural impact agency, whereas we partner with brands from a variety of different sectors, everything from men's fragrance companies and men's grooming products to alcohol brands to car companies to business to banks, and then helping them, as NeAndre mentioned, authentically connect with what we like to say upwardly mobile Black and Hispanic audiences, and really not focusing on programs and messaging that is aspirational, but really delivering it in a way that is attainable. And that's one of the big things about it as well, kind of even going back to the root of our conversation is providing storytelling and providing content and access to things so that you believe that this is attainable and not just aspirational. And that's kind of one of the things that we've done really, really well over the past few years in terms of building this into a business outside of just doing the community-based programming.
You guys, you're hitting so many chords again. That's why I'm so excited to have this conversation. It's very personal for me because I'll just say two things. One of the things that led to what now is the Excel Summit for Men, and again, you were at the first event when it was Black Men Excel. We had a program at Black Enterprise even before that called the Be Modern Man campaign that was about celebrating Black men around the world and across the country in all walks of life. And I'll summarize, I'll tell you two stories that led to even the creation of that. And you already know that I started out at a Black men's fashion magazine early in my career. So this has been a thread of passion for me since I got out of college. But one of the things I've said, again, from public stages as a public speaker is you're not speaking to Black men authentically if you don't see us for who we really are. And the challenge of us in terms of media, and if you worked at Burrell, you know what I'm about to say is true. According to media, Black men fall into one of 5 buckets: victims, perpetrator, athlete, entertainer, Barack Obama. Barack Obama, you know.
Correct. Yeah.
If you're not one of those 5, you don't
yeah.
exist. You're like a unicorn. You're a flying dragon. And if someone meets a unicorn, they say, "Wow, you're a unicorn."
Right.
But the assumption is there's nobody like you, and so.
Right.
You know, events like your flash mobs, or the Be Modern Man campaign that we did, and we did that like in 2015, was like, no, we're not unicorns. That's the people you're profiling are the unicorns.
Yeah.
Everybody ain't Barack Obama. There's only a small percentage of us that's ever going to play pro sports. You know what I'm saying? But the second thing, and it's funny because remember I told you my original career goal was, I don't know if I said this, my original career goal was to end up at GQ or Esquire.
Yeah.
As a Black editor at GQ or Esquire. And I want to spin that around because it looks like I'm about to run out of time again. I will come back on the other side. We're here with Evan Marshall and NeAndre Broussard of Black Menswear. This is Be Lifted Up Radio. We will be right back. Welcome back to Be Lifted Up Radio. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. You guys know I've been too extra. I've been going overboard. I've been too much because I'm talking to these two brothers about one of my favorite subjects, and they're doing such great work. This is Evan Marshall and NeAndre Broussard of Black Menswear. And I just want to talk about, again, why what you're doing resonates with me. I've had a love-hate relationship with GQ since I was in high school. And it goes something like this. GQ was about everything it was about. Fly, clothes, style, travel, places that someone who grew up in a small town had never been, and that was my window to Milan. And I would get it, and then I would get disillusioned and cancel my subscription. This cycle has been going on for decades. And it usually would be because either the absence of people that look like me or the limitation of the only people that made the cover of GQ were athletes and eventually rappers. And I was like, but I knew, and by the time I got to Black Enterprise, I knew so many brothers like you who are doing so many amazing things. I'm like, why their white counterparts was making it into GQ. It wasn't like only white rappers, well, it wasn't like only white entertainers and basketball players, with no disrespect to Eminem, were making it into GQ. Why is this narrow? So the straw that broke the camel's back, brothers. Well, and my other thing was about their narrow depiction of what beauty was and the rare occasions that Black women made it into GQ. It was a very definitive, I'll say model chick, for lack of a better word, but not the full breadth of Black female beauty. The straw that broke the camel's back for me in 2014 was they did a feature, the first feature I ever saw with page after page of Black women. Brown women, it was a feature on Magic City in Atlantic City as a business story. And I was like, I can't. So this idea that the work that you're doing through Black Menswear and across all the media properties that you're touching and engaging and partnering with brands, yes, it's business. Yes, it's cultural, but it's also about telling, what you said, an authentic story about a community. And where I started to show off is that ministry is not just preachers standing in front of people delivering the word, which it is. It's also about the ministry that we do outside of that to deliver truth. And in your case, you're delivering the truth, their authentic truth in all this diversity and breadth about who we are as Black men and Black people to a world that needs to understand that so they could also appreciate our value for their sake as well as our sake. And so I kind of want you to kind of dive into, and I'm thinking particularly of, I've seen some of your flash mob, again, I'm a social media OG.
When coming to one is the question. The question is when you gonna come to one.
Oh, hey, we're gonna work that out. We're gonna work a lot of that out. We got a lot but my point is, I've seen some of them where you got boys in there.
Yes.
And I mentioned how my exposure to style was through the church, the community I came from. It wasn't Wall Street. I didn't live in a Wall Street community. I didn't live in it, but it was like, no, brothers was like, no, this is how you break out.
Yeah.
And as someone who is a church man of faith, grew up in the church, very active in church, loves the Lord, and who comes from a disadvantaged background, I do appreciate, because what my mother had to deal with as a single poor Black mother with kids, being looked at funny because we didn't have the best, being judged by what we could not afford to wear. So I definitely appreciate that. No, you shouldn't feel like because you don't have a suit and tie, you don't belong in church or you don't belong in the front row. I totally 100% buy into that. That said, I've often lamented that unless there's some intentionality about teaching style and appropriate fashion, et cetera, to our boys in particular, they won't know. And they will resent it when you tell them when they're 17, you can't wear this, you got to wear that. You know what I'm saying? That was something that we missed. Now, I don't know if you guys want to touch on. I don't know if you've seen this new the quarter zip trend. Now they got these young brothers like, no, it's time for us to style up again. So that's nice. But I do want you to talk a little about the important contribution, and I'm going to call it a ministry you're making to the community, because have built this entity and this mission around it's not about clothes. It's a much, much bigger thing that you're doing, which I'm going to call a ministry.
First I gotta say, man, shout out to the quarter zip boys, because we really, like, every night we've had a lot of conversations over the last 2 weeks, and this trend has popped up a lot in these conversations. So, man,
and it's getting hotter. It's getting hotter, man.
Yeah, we shot them a DM. We want to do some content with them, so if they hear this, come on, respond back. But the thing about what you said, and the big thing for us this year was to have more conversations around the flash mob, not just have the photos. Because, you know, when we're able to tap in and people can speak to, we have the young men speaking on camera about the experience. We have the mothers that have brought their sons here and that are saying, like, man, my son hasn't smiled this much in a long time, because the brothers are pouring into him and just giving him positive affirmation after positive affirmation after positive affirmation. By the time he leaves there, he's like, nah, I'm supposed to be Barack Obama. You know what I'm saying? Like, he gets that type of support in this community, which is why we know that aspect of the organization it's very important, because it is our, in a sense, our mission, our ministry, it's our give back. Yes, we do these really, really dope campaigns with these brands. And the great thing about those campaigns, we're always going to take an opportunity to say, hey, can we break this campaign down so that way we can authentically get this message across and highlight someone in our community? Don't nobody care about your product. They care about, if I'm the person that's watching this campaign, can I see myself, visualize myself in the person that you're telling this about, and do I feel empowered by it? If that's the case, I can sell you whatever I want. I can sell you toothbrushes if you ain't got no teeth. If you make me feel empowered, like, you know what, one day these teeth gonna come from these gums, because I saw this other black man that looked like me, and all of a sudden he had teeth in his gums. You know what I mean? Like, it just allows you to be able to just build and cultivate. And so, like, truly being able to do that is the point of the platform. That's why we've really been more conscious on having more of these conversations, so people can hear feedback from people that attend these flash mobs. Now you take that and then you then couple that with the work that we're doing with brands, right? So if somebody's watching us online, Instagram, we're on Instagram at Black Menswear, we're on TikTok at the Black Menswear, Facebook Black Menswear, YouTube Black Menswear. All right, they go and they see all that content, and then they reach out to us on blackmenswear.com. See, I got all the tie-ins there. Blackmenswear.com, right? And then they come and they say, well, as a brand, how can we work with you? And they fill out a short questionnaire, and the first thing that Evan's going to process that, like, what's your goal here? Is your goal to do something that doesn't align with our community? We can do it, but it's not going to hit the same. You're not going to hit the results that you want. Or is it something that we can take an approach of? Let's take a full 360 approach of this and say, all right, is the opportunity here to build a community within this community? Oh, we can knock it out the park. And just being able to really touch on that has shifted us. Evan mentions, like, a lot. We're extremely good at top of the funnel. If you're trying to get exposure and awareness and additional engagement to your brand and what your brand is doing, not to your product, but what your brand is doing, the community that you're building, Evan, I'm not going to toot our horn, but we haven't really missed when it comes to authentic storytelling on a campaign. But I'll let him speak a little bit more into that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just overall, I think one of the things that we do from a work standpoint, I think the key thing is what we say, like I think one of the things you said is about helping you see yourself represented. I think one of the key things you said as well is, like, you have the opportunity to wear with young boys and appealing to them. And that's one of the big things in us right now, is how are we engaging with the Gen Z demographic. I think a lot of people don't even realize how old Gen Z is. When they think Gen Z, they think of high schoolers. People don't realize the oldest Gen Z person's 28. So 2 years, so 2 years from now, that means Gen Z will be 30. When you put a lot of times people think of Gen Z as literally just 16, 17, 18-year-olds. It's not like, no, that's you got 24, 25, 27-year-olds that are Gen Z. So how you got to speak to them is a little bit different. So from a messaging and community-based standpoint, I think that's also why the quarter zip trend is becoming so popular. It's because you literally have these men that are graduating college, men that are in there, have secured their entry-level job. So now again, if you think about it, the quarter zip isn't about, oh, I gotta get my job. It's like, oh, I'm in the going back to taking it back full circle. I'm in the workplace now. So now that I'm in the workplace, I can't wear the Nike Tech hoodie anymore. I have to wear the quarter zip because I've landed my. I'm still entry level. I'm still in my job. Like I'm still maybe junior level role, but now I'm in this corporate environment, or now I'm in this environment where I have to wear this quarter zip. And that's the whole essence of the quarter zip trend. It's them literally going back to reframing their mindset of now I'm now in a new environment with now I have to adjust to this. But you know what? This actually ain't that bad. I
Right.
kind of like how
Yeah.
this looks over here. I
You're
kind of
talking
like
about
this
that
environment that
reframing
I'm in
from,
now.
it went from I have to do this to I get to do this. And
Right,
then it's,
correct. And
oh,
that's yep,
and
and that's
that's,
the essence of the quarter zip. If you really think about how what they're saying, it's literally what you just said. I don't have to do this. I get to do this, and that's why it's actually going so viral because you can see the young men who are participating that reframing that mindset real time in the content that they're producing. So
listen, we're out of time, but I think we ended on a perfect note. I tell people, people don't do things because it's your idea. They do things because it's their idea. When it
right.
becomes their idea, it gets done, and that's what we're seeing. That's what transformation is all about. Listen, brothers, thank you so much. This is Evan Marshall and NeAndre Broussard of Black Menswear. Thank you so much for being patient with me and let me have some fun on a conversation that I think is just really, really important. This is Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you
Happy
for
to be
having me.
here.
Sit tight. We'll be right back. Ooh, you guys you see me do it every show. I get super excited, but this conversation was really an important conversation with these brothers from Black Menswear, Evan Marshall and NeAndre Broussard. Listen, guys, ministry is about more than who's standing in the pulpit and who's sitting with the deacons and who sings in the choir and who's ushering to your seat. Everybody on the face of this earth can bring value to others, can pray for, uplift others, can seek the peace and prosperity of others in their own unique way. And you're taking these two young men, NeAndre Broussard, Evan Marshall, who could have gone on with their lives, been as fly as they want to be, as advertising executives or a financial services executive professional, and could have been fine. Yet they found a way to do something really, really powerful that not only is producing prosperity in terms of brand partnerships and the like, but is also helping others to prosper. And we're even talking about boys, young men, and all those, their mothers. And so listen, I just want you to be inspired by what you can do with what you have where you are. So, it's just so great. And I'm so glad that the brothers from Black Menswear could join us for Be Lifted Up Radio. You can find Be Lifted Up Radio, this episode and every episode, at beliftedupradio.com. We're on the Mocha Podcast Network.com. That's podcast with an S. We're at Be Lifted Radio on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, other platforms. Please subscribe to our Facebook page. Another way you can make sure you catch every episode. We're on Sirius XM 141, HUR Voices, every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern. So again, you have so many ways you can catch our show. But whatever you do, watch it, check out past episodes, invite your friends and family to subscribe and comment and share. We're building our community, the Be Lifted Up Radio community, and we want you to come along and be blessed along with us. All about faith, finance, fruitfulness, and purpose. Be Lifted Up Radio, your guide to living an abundant life. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. Thanks for listening and watching, and we will see you next time.